The universe never actually lets you give up, not on the path of your destiny. You get to take breaks, you get to go on detours, you get to take side quests, but you actually never get to give up on walking the destined path for your life. And I also want to note that it isn't as though you don't have free will. It's not as though that path is prescribed. It's simply that there is a direction and trajectory for your life in the broad sense of your gifts, your service, your passions, the things that you have to offer the world, those things you were born with, and those things you've cultivated during this lifetime, that you are destined to share with the world. And you get to co-create what that looks like. You get to co-create the container that's offered through. You get to co-create a lot of the details. But the actual trajectory seems to be, in a sense, non-negotiable. And I've been sitting with that reality for the last couple of years. I started sharing on YouTube back in December 2019. I shared for a number of years during COVID because it was really the only way I saw to express myself in pursuit of my spiritual path, my spiritual service. And so I made a lot of videos during that period as an attempt to find my voice, to fulfill my dharma. Some of them were decent, some of them were not so good. And that's just the way it is when you start cultivating a new skill. It's not going to be perfect right out of the gate. I'm still not comfortable speaking in front of a camera and sharing my voice. I'm still not comfortable being seen. There are parts of me that want to go retreat into a cave or obscurity and simply pray for the good of all without actually talking to anybody besides God. And that is my growth edge. Being human, being in relationship, being in community, being vulnerable, sharing my voice even though nobody may be interested in what I have to say. But I have a duty to speak my perspective, to share it with any who will listen, because that's why the Creator gave me a voice. And it's a part of my path, even though there are parts of me that are in resistance to it. I deleted most of the videos, if not all of them, that I created when I first started sharing on YouTube. They simply felt like they were too different, dissonant from what I am and am becoming. During that period at the end of last year, a year ago this month, I sort of leveled the playing field. I got rid of most of my possessions. I ended a long-term relationship. I was reduced down to the studs that is the structure of my being. And even those, it seems, were taken down, a new foundation laid for me and my life. I spent the last year traveling, living a somewhat nomadic life. I had been, for most of my life, in Kentucky, practicing law, went to college there, went to law school there, lived for a decade practicing law, building a career, bought a house, had a long-term relationship. And that could have been a whole lifetime in ordinary time. In ordinary times, under ordinary circumstances, that would have been an entire lifetime. That lifetime of the lawyer in Kentucky practicing law, with a house, with a partner, with a career. An ordinary lifetime, in ordinary times, I think I could have seen that lifetime out till I was 70 or 80, passed away, surrounded by loved ones. And that would have been that. But we're not in ordinary time. This isn't an ordinary lifetime. These are extraordinary times of extraordinary change, where we are cycling through lifetimes of karma, lifetimes of programming, lifetimes of lessons in one. I've lost count of how many times I have died since January 2020. I've lost track of how many times I have seen one version of myself come to an end, have the realization that if I am to continue on this planet, I must become something new, something different, something that encompasses the lessons of the past, but is itself something entirely different, something new, a new creation of self. I've lost track of how many times that has happened since the last 5 years. Most recent one was at the end of last year. And that was a life I had hoped would go on for a long time. There were many things about it that were very beautiful. I was living in Asheville, North Carolina with a beloved, had a family, had community. I had an outlet for service and the healing capacity. But at the end, last year, a year ago this month, a life that I loved, that was 90% heaven on earth, came to an end for the simple reason that I had learned everything that path had to offer, and that continuing in that life was incompatible with my larger mission and purpose. So that life dramatically came to an end. Hurricane Helene came in and wiped everything away. My relationship, my home, my job. And I went into my friend's basement, into a hermitage, to allow myself to let go of the last 10, 15 years of my life. I spent 2 months in there, not eating much, meditating, praying, fasting, receiving downloads for the next version of who and what I am becoming. With no job, no family, having shed 80% of my possessions, I decided to spend this year as a nomad, simply traveling where spirit would lead me. First, that led me on to Ecuador for a month, where I integrated the consciousness that had come in at the end of last year, which was more expansive than anything I had yet encountered or embodied. Then I supported a Sundance in Peru in February, a meeting of the eagle and the condor. And then I returned to Asheville, North Carolina, and decided it was time to move to the West Coast. I put everything that wouldn't fit into my luggage into storage and got on a plane, sold my car, moved to Oakland, California to live with a friend and community out there. And that was a beautiful, transformative experience. I got to visit Mount Shasta, commune with that great portal of cosmic awareness. Got to live in the Bay Area and seep in the ethos of Burning Man, with the ethos of personal liberation. After that, my path took me to Boise in June, where I met a kindred spirit, fell a little in love for the first time since leaving my last partnership. After that, I moved to Colorado on July 1st. I started in Colorado Springs at the site where I had a vision back in March 2023 for a temple to be built in the mountains here. The name of that temple is Ramaka, a tantric temple honoring Mother, Father, God, and cosmic consciousness. But there was no revelation from God, from Source, from the archangels about what to do next, about how to manifest that temple into this timeline, into form. So after a week, I made my way to Denver, where I spent a couple weeks, decided that city was too big, too far from the mountains, too far from nature. So I made my way to Boulder, Colorado, where I currently live and have lived since August 1st. And Boulder's a very supportive place for me to be right now. The mountains, the elevation, nature, the peace, the people. And I'll be here as long as I'm called to, which is currently until the end of January. I'm certain it'll be somewhere I return. But many of the things I laid down a couple years ago, because it felt like my path of service had come to an end, are returning. I left my law practice at the end of 2022, joined a friend in Austin, Texas to start a medicine church, holding ceremony, facilitating healing. That lasted about 4 months before it kind of blew up. Then we continued together on that path of service until he passed away in October 2022. And I continued on that path. We began together for a time, facilitating ceremony, pilgrimages to Peru, to sacred sites, to work with our teachers. But I couldn't do it alone. He had many of the skills that I haven't cultivated. He was very good at connecting with people. He was very outgoing. He was very good at logistics. Me, I like to be in the background. I like to work at the subtle level. Don't like to be seen. Don't like to really talk too much unless I have to. And together we made a good team. Alone, there were simply things that needed to be done that I wasn't yet ready or able to do. So in July 2023, came into partnership with someone new, moved to Asheville, North Carolina, started a new life, went back to practicing law in a form that was more in alignment than I had previously done, and working remotely, which was nice, and had a beautiful year of stability. Also able to do healing work, working with a friend there who held ceremony every month. All in all, it had many of the things I wanted and needed in life. All in all, it was a beautiful life that I really enjoyed and loved. But it wasn't my path. It was a detour. It was a side quest. It was an opportunity to rest, to heal, to cultivate some skills before continuing on to the main journey, which I am currently on. Some friends approached me at the beginning of last year to resume doing pilgrimages to Peru to work with our teacher. So I partnered up with them to form Sacred Ways to do that work again. And in September, we did another pilgrimage to Peru, where we visited sacred sites, worked with sacred medicines, and held ceremony to do cosmic and personal healing, global healing. And that definitely felt like a return to my mission and purpose, return to my path of service, chosen by my soul and this individual self, this small self with its limited perspective that simply as best as it can tell, as best as I can tell, that's the highest way I can serve at this time. And those friends that I've partnered with have many of the skills I either don't have, don't care to cultivate, I don't know which. But together we make a good team. The Creator didn't make us all perfect for a reason. We have strengths and we have weaknesses because we're intended to work together. We're intended to work together, to need one another, to recognize that we're better together and that doing it all alone, while it may be possible, is much harder and not nearly as fun. I'm also resuming doing counseling work with people to assist them with transformation, healing work to assist with that. And now I'm doing this video to resume that aspect of my sharing. Parts of me are in resistance to resuming this path because last time things fell apart. Last time things didn't go so well. Last time I didn't quite make it. But I'm starting to recognize at a deep cellular level, the universe doesn't let you give up on your path. That there's no such thing as failure. There are learning, growing, and healing opportunities. There's no such thing as failure. That the path makes you worthy of walking. That the path heals you and strengthens you if you're willing to walk it. You just have to be willing to put one foot in front of the other, even though there are parts of yourself that are afraid, that are hesitant, that don't know whether you can do it. We keep getting opportunities to do what our soul is meant to do in this world. You just have to pay attention to those opportunities and say yes when they arise. Move forward, move towards them, one step at a time, co-creating your destiny. I've at times thought that my destiny was a thing that I simply had to accept. That Spirit had preordained certain things, and I simply had to go with it. And that's partially true, except that there's no division in truth between me and Spirit. That higher self, that aspect of me that is beyond time and space, is co-creating with this less mature and advanced part of myself that is me in this body, the curriculum and the path that serves our highest evolution and growth. And that this part of me right here is an equal partner in that work. I get to say no to certain things because sometimes that's a test of discernment. I get to say I have preferences about certain things, and that's a test as well, and personal empowerment and sovereignty. God, your higher self, Great Spirit, guides, they do not wish to make you a slave. They wish to help empower us into being sovereign beings, possessed of discernment, possessed of free will, co-creating the life that is most beautiful to us in service to the good of all. At least that's where I'm at right now. Goodbye, everybody. Hopefully I'll see you again soon.